officials, since we just are going into a new cycle. And of course, ask them any questions. It's all about Mon County today. So I'd like to thank everybody who is here today. We have representatives on both the state and county level. And I'm going to turn it over to Jacob. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jacob Coots. I'm with the Morgantown Area Partnership. I'm the Membership and Public Affairs Manager. I appreciate you all being here this morning. I'd first like to have Mike Oliverio up. But before we get started, I'd be remiss if I didn't introduce AJ Hammond, our brand new Vice President of Chamber Services here at the Partnership. So today's goal is, it's all about Mon County, as Melissa stated. It's all about Mon County. Today, we're going to find, issues and common ground that we can all move on to advance the county. So I'd like to start with Mike, and then you all can ask questions, and then I will invite the House side up, and then afterwards we'll return to a more informal networking session and let you all network a little bit and communicate with one another. So, Mike?
All right, thank you. It's a lot of pressure being the first one. I have to set the tone for everybody else here. I think you all know I love West Virginia. I love our community, and I'm really excited to have an opportunity to get back to Charleston and represent each of you. We received our committee assignments recently. I think that's important for you to have some sense of what our responsibilities will be in Charleston. I basically received every committee I requested. I'll be on the Finance Committee. I think the state is more flush with cash today than at any point in the 160-year history of the state. So I'm excited to be on the Finance Committee and be able to make some of those decisions as to how we invest those dollars and how we return some of those dollars back to our constituents who paid those dollars into the state. So I'm excited about that. Education is extremely important in our area with West Virginia University, Fairmont State, Monongalia and Marion County, big public school systems. So I'll be on the Education Committee, and I'll work in those areas of public education and higher education. I've always been very concerned about the state's finances, particularly our pensions, and I've done a lot of work in that area. I've helped our state be able to invest its public money. I'll be back on the Pensions Committee, keeping an eye on that. We are reaching a point where we will have the best funded pensions in the country. We're close, we're not there yet, but we're close. And when that happens, hundreds of millions of dollars, about $400 million this year alone, will be freed up in the budget to do other things, to return to our taxpayers, to invest in services, to provide other government services. But we are close to a 30-year plan that I was involved in putting together years ago. We are close to funding that to the point where we can divert dollars and not have such an enormous amount of our state budget going into these pension obligations. Most of the other states in the country cannot say that. I'll be on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. I know those are huge priorities up here. We have to figure out a way to better work with our Division of Highway folks, both local and state officials. We have some major projects that need to be completed. The interstate exit that's going to help us with our development of our industrial park, we need to get that started and get that built. And we need to make a variety of other transportation improvements. And what I hear most from constituents is we need to maintain the roads that we have. We need to make repairs, and then we also need to keep them safe in the winter. And that's a place where maybe we're falling short and we could devote more dollars there. I'll be on the Economic Development Committee. I'll continue to work on a variety of issues. Most of all, though, I'd love to hear from you all as the session goes forward. Most of us head back down there early in the week, so we'll be down there for the next 9 weeks. If there are issues that arise, please reach out to us. We've got a great legislative delegation. I'm particularly proud to be associated with this group of folks that are going to come up after me, and I'm looking forward to working with them. If they can get things across the line in the House chamber, I'll be there ready to help them get it the rest of the way through the Senate chamber. So looking forward to working with our delegation and looking forward to working with each of you all. Thank you.
Now we're going to have Gina Shirelli up front from the House of Delegates. Gina?
Howdy everyone, my name is Gino Shirelli. I am from District 78, which is the southeast portion of Mon County. And following Senator Oliverio's advice, as he's told me multiple times, I'm going to be doing a lot more listening my first session than I will be talking, but I will say that on top of the goal of learning, one thing that I want to focus on, I want to play on one of my strengths. I want to work on addiction. As we all know, it is still a very prevalent problem in the state. It's very pervasive, especially in Morgantown, which is a population hub. The national polling might suggest that the public perception is that it's getting better. We know from real world data that it's actually getting worse here. So based off of my experience in addiction services, based off of my experience in child protective services, both in here in Pennsylvania, I know that there still needs to be a lot of work done. So that's something that I plan on focusing on mostly. As far as my committees, I'm on government organization, I'm on education, and then I'm on emergency services along with Delegate and I will be on the senior children and family issues. So, like I said, that's pretty much all I have to say. I'm going to be doing way more listening than talking, but addiction still remains my number one priority. And as always, Mon County comes first for me. Thank you.
Next up, we'll have Debbie Warner.
Hi, I'm Debbie Warner. I am delegate-elect for the newly formed District 82. I've been assigned to the Energy Committee, to the Judicial Committee, Workforce Development, and also the EMS. I'm really looking forward to getting to Charleston and working to move Monongalia County forward. And I am all ears, so please reach out to me if you've got issues or concerns, and I'll be happy to help. Thank you.
Next up, we'll have Evan Hansen from the House of Delegates.
I'll use the podium.
This isn't an entire role.
So we have new committee assignments this session, and a couple are the same for me, a couple are new. I'm going to be back on the Energy and Manufacturing Committee, but this time I will be the minority chair. I'll be returning as the minority chair of Natural Resources and returning to the Political Subdivisions Committee along with Delegate Williams. A new one for me is Workforce Development, and the other new one for me is Judiciary. I'll be on Judiciary this cycle. In terms of a couple of priorities that I have, people who know me know that I'm very interested in diversifying the energy economy, creating jobs, addressing climate change. There is a bill that I had introduced last session that seems to have a little bit more support this session, so I'm hoping that it will move. It's related to community solar, which allows solar developers to come into the state, build a project, and sell shares of that solar development to businesses or people that want to have cheaper electricity, want to go green, but may not have the right roof to put solar on their own roof, or maybe they're rent and don't own their building, so they don't have access to the roof. So that's one, the community solar bill. The second bill that I'm championing is called the PFAS Protection Act. And this is related to PFAS chemicals. These are those forever chemicals, like Teflon and stuff that's sprayed onto our jackets and Gore-Tex and non-stick coatings and things like that. And the issue with PFAS is that they're very toxic at very low levels. And the legislature passed a study resolution a couple of years ago and just completed a study of the raw water supply for all the community water systems across the state. So that's the rivers and streams and lakes. And unfortunately found PFAS in concerning levels in about half of those raw water systems. So the bill that I'm proposing is going to direct the state to do further study to identify the sources of the pollution so that we could hold the polluters accountable rather than putting the burden on the water utilities and the ratepayers like you and me. So that's the PFAS Protection Act. Some of the other issues I have sort of my antennae up to address should they come up. I'm concerned about bills that have come through political subdivisions in the past to restrict the ability of local governments to fund their street paving and their police departments. So that's something I'm going to look out for, and hopefully that won't move. I'm also looking carefully, like we all are, about this at the budget surplus in terms of what we can do with that money. Certainly everybody wants to return money to taxpayers, but I think we do need to take a sober look at some of the unmet needs from state government and acknowledge that the state budget has been flat for many years, and there are still some big needs for our kids in public schools, foster kids, CPS workers, corrections officers, troopers, EMS. There's a lot of unmet needs. And I think the other thing to keep in mind with the budget surplus is that at least a decent portion of that is related to an increase in severance taxes. And the increase in severance taxes we're seeing now is a cycle. The price of the fossil fuels, which impacts the severance tax, is unnaturally high now due to the war in Ukraine and international issues. So that's going to reduce again in the future, and we can't necessarily count on having that level of surplus in the future. So those are a few things I'm looking at, and I'm also happy to take any questions now or at the appropriate time. Thanks.
Next up, we'll have John Williams.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for being here today. This is a really good crowd. I'm happy to be in downtown Morgantown, a place where, someplace that is likely to benefit from a bill that I have, that I've worked on with Councilwoman Danielle Trumbull, who's here today. You may have read about it in the paper recently. That's the DORA legislation. So this is designated outdoor refreshment areas, which is a permissive bill which would give municipalities the ability to designate an area as someplace in which people could go, get a glass of wine at one restaurant, walk around, do some shopping, go to another restaurant. It's all about economic development for me, and I think that this bill reflects that. It's something that other cities are doing with some success. They're able to do it across the world without any trouble. I think that we can manage it here in Morgantown, West Virginia. I also serve on the Political Subdivisions Committee, which is important for me. I'm proud. I don't know that any other delegate has as many municipalities as I do. I have Granville, Morgantown, Star City, and Westover. So I have 4 municipalities. Municipalities are important to me, and certainly I'm concerned with the attack on municipalities over the past few legislative sessions and their ability to raise funds. A lot of people will talk about the partisanship of Republican versus Democrat, but really I think in the state of West Virginia, a unique problem that we face is a different kind of partisanship, and that's rural versus urban. And in such a rural state, it's unfathomable to have some of the problems that we have. People aren't familiar with them. They don't have similar problems. And so to be able to go down and articulate the issues that we have, to say that the city of Granville has this burgeoning shopping center where people flock to, and they need to be able to have the adequate amount of police and fire to protect that, people just can't comprehend that. So it's our job to do that coming from this urban area. Serving on the Finance Committee for the past 4 years, I've been happy to keep about $15 million at the WVU School of Medicine. There was a bill last year which changes how that funding is allocated. I'm hoping that that is going to stave off people who have tried to take our funds in the past. I'm hoping that that will have placated them, but still need to keep our eye on that to make sure that our wonderful facility continues to be what it is. There is great concern with the budget in West Virginia. When I first came in as a freshman, there was a $500 million shortfall. We talked about that as if it was this huge calamitous event, that how can we possibly make up this $500 million? And now we've got about $1 billion to the positive, and we think we can live high off the hog in perpetuity. So there's a bit of a disconnect there. I think we all know that budgets go up, they go down, and if you look at severance tax collections over the past 50 years in West Virginia, there's a downward trend. As was indicated by Delegate Hansen, right now we are on an upward trend. But I wonder, when is that next shoe going to drop? And we need to prepare for that next shoe to drop and ensure that we have a budget that works for essential services for all West Virginians. And I think the inflationary effect that all West Virginians, all Americans have experienced this past year is certainly of the utmost importance when you talk about a flat budget and you brag and pound your chest that we didn't cut anything this year. Well, unfortunately, there's a cut already built into that, as is the nature of inflation. And so we need to make sure that we're giving West Virginians what they need to compete in this life and to get out and do everything that they have to do for their family. I look forward to your questions. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Delegate Staton.
Thank everyone for being here. I'd have to say, it'd be remiss to say that it is a decent crowd that's out here today to listen. I will tell you that I'm more of a person of action, less of words. And so I can tell you there's 1,000 things I could talk to you about that's going through my mind getting ready for next week and things that's going on. We do have a good working relationship with the delegates and the senators we have in Monongalia County. And I would suggest to you that you get to know everyone, because we pull a big load when we pull together. Forget about the politics of it. We're all going to have different viewpoints on some things, but at the same time, we all need to come together for the greatest interest. I represent District 77 now in Monongalia County and part of Wetzel County, which is all the Western District, then swing south a little bit over to Taylor County. So I've got a wide swath that goes through. But I will tell you that I also serve everybody in Monongalia County in the state of West Virginia. That's what my job is. My job is to work with others to make West Virginia a better place. By doing that, we make all the state a better place. We make the local areas of Granville, Morgantown, Westover, Star City, Blacksville, they're all better if we work together. Now I get down, I serve on the Education Committee. I've been appointed back to serve as the Vice Chair. A little bit different this year, we're going to have co-chairs. So we're splitting the load up a little bit. I will be the Vice Chair over the higher ed side of it, and Chris Toney will be over K-12. Now does that mean we're not going to dabble in intermixing each other's business? No, I can guarantee you. I will still have my say in K-12. That's where my passion is, and I'll also serve higher ed. I serve on Finance Committee. As John and Mike has pointed out, that's a great committee. It's very powerful. A lot of things comes through there. It's it and judiciary, I will tell you, if you want to get into the real nuts and bolts of how the legislature works, the committee structure is how it works. Take it for however you want it, the committee structure. Judiciary and finance is the graveyard of all bills. They get there and they automatically stop. So we've got to work ahead of time to make sure when they get into those areas that we can keep them moving, that they're important and why they're important. So that's why it's good to have people representing onto those committees. I serve on Fire and EMS, and don't even get me started on Fire and EMS. I will tell you that I could be here for 2 days talking to you about the issues that faces us in the Fire and EMS arenas. And even though we passed a levy, I don't know how many people in this room realizes even with that levy that we put in place for the EMS services in Monongalia County, they will still not make a break even. It's be prepared for what's going on. So there's clearly needs out there. And I don't know how many in this room knows, as a state, we do not have any type of funding to help the EMS systems across the state of West Virginia. Therefore, we're losing systems continually across the state. Unfortunately, I could not serve 2 committees in a leadership role as chairman, so I had to step down as chair of Fire and EMS. I am still on the committee, know the chairman, the vice chairman well, and have a good working rapport with them. So I look forward to still moving those issues forward. A little bit of a change up for me this year. I am no longer on infrastructure and technology. I'm not sure if they know my skills in technology is not great, so maybe they need to get somebody who knows a little bit more about what they're talking about. Or maybe they looked at my gray hair and said, he can't handle this workload. I don't know. But for whatever reasons, I'm not serving on that this year, but I will be on ag and natural resources, which is a good fit for me. As you know, I come out of the ag area of the county and still continue. There's lots of needs into that area. And real quickly, I'll say, I'm not sure. There's a lot of bills out there that are still coming. Mayor Lewis yesterday mentioned something to us that we need to guard against, the B&O tax. That was brought just as of yesterday. We have a magistrate circuit judge issue that's going on in this county. It's going to be very important to us to move legislation forward. EMS, as you just heard me say, is critical. And we're fortunate in Monongalia County. A lot of counties would love to have one service. You know, we have services that the county commission and the health system was able to correct, but we had systems where we're fighting who was going to get what piece of the pie. They don't have that all over the state of West Virginia. So it's going to be passionate. I can tell you right now, I've asked for funding for the EMS system through the governor. We'll continue to advocate for that. So those are some of the issues, very few of the issues I have. I don't know how many bills I have that's coming up. I haven't gotten a number on them. I keep getting them every day saying this bill that you've asked for is moving up to get ready to be introduced next Wednesday. So with that, I look forward to working with everyone in this room. I could care less what their affiliation is with politics. We all can work together, and I'm telling you, we can come out with good results if we do that. Thank you very much.
I just want to thank you all once again for being here. I can't stress enough the importance of working together and identifying a common ground so that we can create a better place to work and live in. So at this time, we'll have a sort of an open networking / mingling session. Please get up and talk to each other. It's a very...
Can we ask some general questions?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, since I brought it. Thank you for being here. I mean, I've been on county commission 10 years, and I think, well, no, I know, we have a serious problem. We have two major overriding problems that are not being dealt with in Mon County. The first, and was mentioned, was the drug / mental health issue. I don't care whether the state talks about taxes, bringing in businesses, until you deal with that first part of it, and the second part being roads and infrastructure. And 10 years, we've tried to do things, and I don't know what it is about why we are being punished in Mon County, but that's how the perception is by the people. And one of the concerns I'd like to bring out is that we have these roads, we have all this economy, we're the economic engine. We don't mind sending the funds. I think everyone here doesn't mind sending the funds back down to Charleston, as long as we get our fair share back. And why are we not getting that fair share? And that's the big question that we need you all to go out down there to do. So I'm going to make a proposal, something we've never done before. It started with, and I hope you would continue, and I talked to Joe about going back to that North Central Caucus, which worked. I mean, when Evan took 6 months to figure out the formula, it was great. We all worked together. It got vetoed, and then we never heard from it again. But we're still losing money. And what I'm going to throw out is there are no Democratic roads. There are no Republican roads. We need the 6 of you in the delegates and the state senators to meet twice a week. I'm going to throw this out while you're down there to work together to support Monongalia County. Since I've been here and on city council, when the Democrats are in charge or the Republicans are in charge, y'all aren't working together. You really aren't. And I'm very concerned that we're now at a point where we're now making decisions because the state tells the Republican Party, Democratic Party, do this, do that, and you're losing Monongalia County. And I think we're at the crossroads right now. We are being hurt. I look at some of the projects we're doing in West Ridge. Doing a perfect example, maybe the city and county may argue, but we both agree when you drive up Brockway, and it's a state route, it's not a city-county issue. Where is our leadership coming to Charleston saying, you have $1.5 billion, let's bring some of that money back to the infrastructure to help Monongalia County. and I will be quiet, but that's my Phillyism saying, I want you all to work together because it isn't working now. We're fractured. The state's fractured, our county's fractured, and just like yesterday, for whatever reason, I don't know why the Democrats and Republicans, for whatever reason, we're not there supporting that issue. We got to start tomorrow on that, and I'll say that. Now I'm in real trouble. Thank you for listening.
I would like to take a stab at answering that. I would tell you that we have had discussions on it, and I think it was 2 to 3 years ago that I went as far as sending out letters to everyone for the North Central region asking that we start a caucus. And I would answer the first thing that you were talking about, meeting twice a week. I will tell you, when you're down in the deep in the dungeons, I'm not sure twice a week would be possible. We will meet with each other probably more than twice a week, but getting together as a complete group of representatives from the North Central region, boy, that would be tough to do that twice a week. I can tell you the schedules would be out there. But the thing of it is, you don't always have to meet together as a full group, as long as we can meet and talk to each other and each other talks to them. In any other organization, you would not allow to do that because of the open sunshine law. So you can only talk to so many. Well, we make the rules so we can go whatever and put the rules however we want. We can talk individually and among each other, and we do quite often. I would say that to you, Tom. That is something that's working. I think it's powers and numbers. There's a lot of caucuses across the state of West Virginia that represents everything. And the thing about a caucus and a meeting, even if it's once a week, we're able to bring up issues that we see out there that, because of, like I said, there's 100 things we're trying to juggle at one time down there that's very important to us, but somebody else may not have realized or heard about it, or somebody hasn't brought it to their attention. So that's where I think the caucus will work great, that we can look at it and say, this is there. We know that when bills on the House side gets moved out of there, as I told some of the new ones that's coming in, it's not over. You can't stop at that. As you know, the first thing when you move a bill and it gets off the floor in the House, I've immediately got to go over to the Senate side and talk to Mike, to Charlie Clements, to Mike Maroney, and other senators who'd be sympathetic toward that, because I don't have time to watch all the committees over there, but there's times when I'll need to be over there to do that. So those are the type of working relationships that we've got to have. We've got to have the working relationships. I can guarantee you, any door I walk in down there, whether it's on the House or the Senate side, the first thing they're going to think, here he comes, wanting to complain about EMS services across the state again. So you become known with what you're looking at. Getting your fair share back to the county is very important to all of us. And what is that fair share? And I will tell you, here is the issue that we have. When we stand up on the floor or in those committees to speak on behalf of some of the things that we're needing and wanting here in Monongalia County, that look that comes across everybody's face is, you guys are the people with the golden spoon in your mouth. How dare you come and ask us for anything? You have everything you need now. So we need more people from back in the area moving forward, talking about these issues. For instance, we all know we've got Mountaintop going to go into production very soon. We still don't have a plan in place for the interchange that's going to take that traffic out of Westover. And I can tell you, when all those trucks start rolling through Westover, we're going to hear. And it's not something that we haven't been working on. I just still can't get my arms around what has taken that thing so long. I could have went over there as a shovel and started by the time we started talking about it, and I think I could have had 90% of the base already laid out. But yet we haven't turned the first shovel. They got all kind of equipment on here. I keep telling Glenn Adrian and the folks from the park, just get out there and start moving the dirt around. You know how it needs to be moved to stay off the state property, and then you get that much ahead. I don't know why it takes so long to do this type of stuff, but it does. And you're right. Our roads are bad. And I hear it all the time about the roads across the state not being that bad. Well, they don't use our roads nearly as much as we use ours. I mean, the truck traffic is 100 times worse every time they make a path across the road than all of the cars it travels. 100 times worse. And we've got truck traffic running to the western end of the county, coming out to the oil and gas areas. And so it's just going to multiply and get worse. The formula bill that John and Evan worked on, that baby has been around, and we've had that thing moving ever since Brian Perchava and I sat in an office together down there. That came from a study we had asked for. The first thing, I think it was $500,000 we paid for that study of the road systems in West Virginia. That was one of the recommendations that came from that group, that the funding formula is not in place. You would think it'd be a no-brainer. It's down there ready for me to introduce the first day of the session, and hopefully we can get it to move forward again. And once we get it there, I think you know that if it's something we can get through both houses, the one thing I can guarantee you is if we can get it through fast enough, veto's not going to do it any good. We simply have the veto overriding power. I mean, that's just pure and simple. So, Tom, I hope I answered your questions. I'm willing tomorrow to form that group of the North Central Caucus. The only thing I'm not sure is how much do we call North Central? And, you know, where's the load at? I'm sorry it takes so long, but
I appreciate you responding.
One of the things I'd like, I think it'd be nice if we did, when we say we do when we go down to Charleston, is if we can figure out a way to not focus on where we disagree, but focus on areas where we agree, where we can work together. And, you know, come up with 4 or 5 things that we're all going to focus on, and we're all going to, so when someone asks us, yeah, we're all for that interchange. Yes, we're all for getting exit to 155 movement. Yes, we're all for the capacity increases for MUB so that we can develop the Westridge and Chaplain Hill and finalize exit 155. Just, you know, Mayor Kowecki and I had this, we've been friends for years. And one of the first things I came into commission and said, listen, you know, I ran because I didn't want commission telling the city what to do, and I didn't want the city telling commission what to do. But how can we work together? And let's not focus on all those hot button issues that just cause so much and we don't get anywhere. Let's just drill down and find the little things that we can work on and chalk those off. And then the bigger things that we disagree, maybe we'll see the light and where we both stand in those issues, and we can move those forward. So just, you know, we're going down there and we're essentially 50-50, and a party affiliation shouldn't mean anything. We're going down there as Mon County, and that's what we do at the county commission. Party affiliation doesn't mean anything. All we've done is just work on what we can do to help our citizens. Not part of our citizens, all of our citizens, and the most citizens we can help at the same time. And the people will see that. They'll see you working together, and I think that, you know, it's unfortunate party affiliation has to do with anything. You know, we should just be focused on, we're Mon County. We're going to go down there and we're going to try to find some things that we can do. We're not always going to agree on everything and agree that we disagree on things, but let's focus on the things, there are plenty of things that we agree on that we can work on. So that's what I would suggest from the delegation.
I think, Commissioner, I think your point is well taken. And something that I want to say while we're in this room together talking about communication, collaboration, because it's not just about us, it's about, there are a lot of interested stakeholders in this room right now. Something that we hear a lot is, well, there was that bill and they didn't call us about it to get our input about it. We're the experts on this. As Joe mentioned, things move fast down there. Okay, so if there's a bill that you know about, just don't assume that we're going to know your connection to it and pick up the phone and call you. Call us. We answer our phones. I talk to everybody in this room. I think most people in this room have my cell phone number. And I don't know how many times I don't answer those calls. So if there's a bill about realty that comes up, maybe I don't have time to give you a call and tell you and ask you. but you have a Realtors Association that has made you well aware of that bill, and if you call me about it, we'll talk about it. And so that's a message. I know that there's been criticism of communication among the delegation back to stakeholders back home. And that is the only point that I want to drive home. There's not a one of us right here that won't talk to anyone in this room pretty much day or night while we're down there, because honestly, when it comes to nighttime, we don't have anything else there.
John, our phone's dialed just like yours is.
Yes, sure.
It's two-way. Sure.
I make follow up on that comment, John. My personal experience has been exactly what you said. Not making any assumptions that you all know what might be in our individual areas of specialty, and text message or a phone call. I mean, I might get a text message back later in the evening, but there's always communication. So I really appreciate your receptiveness, your responsiveness, and you're all living proof of I've never sent anything down to anyone that I did not get at least some kind of response. So I know not every area is represented as well. So thank you.
Mayor?
I would say another time when legislation is being developed and there are hearings, a few times we've gotten some nice communication about, can we come down and help testify on different issues? And please do keep us in mind for that role as well. Sometimes we can't make it in the timeline that would be helpful, but we are available and we would be glad to come and speak. That includes roadways, that includes taxation, that includes issues with MUB, anything that you have that's developing that you know about, or that you can cue us. It's hard for us to know some of the things that you all know, and so we will try to keep abreast, and our attorney in particular keeps abreast and gives us information about some of the things that are going on. So, but do keep us in mind, including in the off-season, to try to develop some good legislation and plan ahead for the next season.
While we're in the room together, and by the way, I gave your cell phone number to another mayor.
It's written on the bathroom wall.
And speaking to, not everybody's. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Patty Lewis, mayor from the town of Greenville. I think most of the delegates I met yesterday, they already know me. So one of the pieces of legislation that we have been made aware of through the Municipal League that I'm not sure all our delegates are aware of is still the conversation about eliminating B&O tax. So at the commission meeting yesterday, I just kind of gave a brief synopsis because our delegates were needed to leave the meeting about what the impact would be. I know for the town of Granville, but there are 4 other municipalities in Monongalia County as well, so I can only speak to our numbers. And I went back to the office and looked at a budget revision that we're going to do to try to get more accurate numbers, but our B&O tax is 43% of our budget. Our public safety services to the town and to the town center is 65% of our budget. So if municipalities and towns, villages are expected to provide services to businesses, you want the businesses to come to your municipality, you want people to come and visit your municipality, we have to be able to provide services so that our roads are safe, our businesses are safe. And if there is discussion about B&O tax elimination, I know some of the legislators think it's antiquated, and maybe it is, but in that discussion there has to be an immediate revenue stream to help towns and cities to fill that gap. They can't just eliminate it and leave us hanging until they figure out the second part. So, if that bill's introduced, if there's discussion, please contact us. We'll try to come down to, we have enough, time to schedule that. But this is really important. I know it's important to us, and I'm sure it's important to Morgantown, Westover, Star City, Blacksville. I mean, it affects all of us.
I'll chime in on it too.
Yeah.
Just, I'm on the legislative committee for the minister for the municipal league. That is an issue for us, but it goes beyond that. To some degree, and then we've talked a little bit about this, Joe. The attitude down seems to us down at the legislature that they don't have an appreciation for the municipalities and what they need to do, or the services that they provide, or the way they fund the services. We've been fortunate in the time that I've been on council that we've been able to increase the revenues coming in from various sources, and I think we spread them around. So it's the B&O tax on one hand, but then other people talk about the service fee, and then other people look at the sales tax, and all of these are contributed to some degree. Charleston in particular, I think it's 45% of their revenue is from B&O. If you want to start adjusting or start playing with our budget, then you need to find a way to take on our responsibilities. So we're willing to, the municipal league is willing to talk about anything that you need to do in order to make the state stronger and better, but we need to find a way to make sure that we're not, to some degree, I think in Tom's terms, strangling the golden goose. So please be careful of that and pay attention to that. And I appreciate everything else that you guys are working on. I think all of this, all of your attitudes, I'm very encouraged by the representation that we have down there. And I know you're always giving us your ear and you listen to what we say. I think the mayor made a good point. If we need somebody to come down and testify, we'd be more than happy to do that and give you our point of view and bring with us anything that you need to have in order to prove our point of view. I think what we've done in the past here can demonstrate, really, give us the right resources and we can certainly deliver a product that's worthwhile. Thank you.
I think I've met most everybody in this room. I think a couple of you have been to the office that I work in. But I hear a lot of conversation about how we bring things back here. Delegate Stadler talking about certain things, but there's a cost of investment, right? I work for a small business. I'm a salesperson. I travel all over the state. And the roads are better other places. And you're right, the more wear and tear because of what's going on in economic development, there's a price of success, right? So when all this stuff's going on, it costs your residents double. So we pay our taxes, what goes into the fund and what comes back. Then our vehicles, whatever we have, costs us more. Small businesses, they, when we have stuff in natural resources where we've invested to bring stuff, oil and gas, coal, whatever it is, we all pay for that and bring that here. The same thing when all these companies and we're trying to bring economic development within the cities, right? We have to get, the one thing that I would love to see taken down to the legislature and to the leadership is there's a return. We all have to take a chunk of that, right? And we invested in these natural resources, these drilling wells and stuff, and I know it's agriculture versus urban. We know that. I don't care about red and blue. I've delved into politics and I've been out of it for 6 years and I have no interest in it. I'm sitting here because I travel all over. Uniquely, I put office furniture in, commercial furniture in places. And you know what is hard is when a business owner is looking at a prospective property and they look out the door and the roads are cracked. This is the economic engine of the state. It costs us more to run that engine. And that's time for Charleston to realize that. So hopefully you guys can bring that back. And if you want my business card, if you want my opinion on it, I'll give it to you. But I work for a company, a small business that operates statewide. And I see it. So, hopefully you guys can go down and say, hey, there's a cost to our success. And we're the ones footing the bill twice.
I have a question
This organization has a meeting, Morgantown Area Partnership has a meeting the second Monday at 9 a.m. about roadways.
Transportation Committee?
Yeah.
Transportation Committee. And we have had various of you come over time, but the more of you that could come and the more we could plan, the head of our MMPO comes. People are invited from MUB, people are invited from the school district. Anyone as part of the MAP organization, so business owners come, the city's represented, everyone is welcome. And these folks run it, and it's at 9 in the morning, right? 9 in the morning. Used to be a little bit earlier, 9 in the morning. And we realize that that may not happen, that you all can come during session, obviously, but this has to be a long-term thing. We need to long-term figure out how we can get back the roadway dollars and the transportation dollars that we need. So please keep that in mind during the...
And one of the things that we talked about at our last transportation committee meeting was not only the roads, but the intersections where trucks are making turning motions tends to that really, if you know anything about road construction, which I didn't until I worked for a municipality, that motion really does a lot to destroy roads. Yes, there's a lot of straightaways that are having issues too with rutting, but when you see down on Brockway on that curve and on these intersections right out here, a lot of times they get torn up quite quickly. We talked with one of the folks from the Transportation District 4 at that meeting about the possibility of what if we find those heavy impact areas, and instead of milling and repaving with asphalt, we go with concrete instead. That tends to create a lot more durability for those heavy traffic areas. His concern was obviously the cost, and yes, the initial cost is a lot higher than going back with asphalt, but long-term maintenance on it, I think if you look at places that have done it, within a decade, you save a ton of money by having concrete on just those really particular areas where you see, like you do out here at this intersection on Spruce and Walnut. If that were concrete instead of asphalt, we wouldn't be having the issues that we have today.
Which happened almost immediately.
Oh, yes.
I have an idea, and I'm going to put the map on the spot. It took us years to develop MAP. We couldn't even get it together in Monongalia County. Now that we have MAP, rather than you all having to get set to call a certain county or a city, what about the possibility, I'm going to throw it out, that we set up a system through MAP that, I don't know, be your political unit or whatever, that if you saw something coming, your staff would contact them, and they would be the pool of which then we as a city and county keep calling them, so then it goes to only one place, and then it's diversifying the information, and then that way it's helping you out, and it puts it on us, so it's over us.
Well,
is that a possibility?
And I didn't slip you a note, but
What kind of a flip are you thinking about?
so we have a government affairs committee, and we have transportations are two probably our most active committees. We have a good level of volunteers on that on those. One of the things the partnership's built for is really to represent everyone, and we're getting a little bit better at it each year, but it's a continual process. So one of the things that I've been searching for, and we've been talking a little bit about, is how can we help you, right? How can we help you and your challenges and efforts down there to one, is it communications back to the general group of MAP, which does include governments and education and business? Is it, what can we do to support you better so that you don't have to, when you're handling 100 different things, you can make a quick phone call, we can disseminate some information, we can get feedback for you. If you need somebody to testify, maybe the mayor can't make it, but maybe we can get somebody to go down and represent the subject matter that is at hand, or whatever that case may be. And you have the real estate association, you have tourism, you have the municipal league. Those are very, very great organizations, not trying to replace any of those efforts, really just kind of be a general contact support, if you will, for our representatives at the state legislature, and be that sounding board communications piece, getting two-way communications going. Maybe together we'll figure it out, and this year we'll talk maybe a lot more about it, try it out. Give me a call, give Eric a call, give Jacob a call. We'll do our best, and we'll continue to work on something that is effective for you and for the community.
You know, on that line, I will tell you that the one thing that we probably need to work on a lot more is, again, don't assume, as John said, that we see everything that's in these bills, because we're really focused on our committees, our committee work. We're focused on what's on the floor, where it's moving at, how it's moving, and we're focused on what's going on the other side of the building. So you can get lost on some of these things, and maybe we glaze over and see a bill. We all read the bills as they come up every day. We may not see all the bills, but we read what this bill pertains to. I would quite frankly tell you, I look at the bill sometimes and says, this thing doesn't stand a chance of moving forward. And you kind of put it in an area where you don't think it's moving, and somebody got the juice to move that thing, lo and behold, and it's starting to roll. I like to meet with the other delegates and stuff ahead of the bill getting into committee or getting onto the floor, because sometimes it's easier to talk to them when it's not out in there. I'm more of a person that works behind the scenes to try to stop something before it gets out there, or change it till it's a little bit more appetizing for the area. What we can really use your guys' expertise on, you guys are back up here, and you're going to focus in just the same as we focus, but you're going to focus on what it means to us in this area. We need that feedback, because there may be things that we miss that it could do. For instance, I would love to talk to them later about the B&O tax. I don't have an issue with the B&O tax on the retail side. We know that's there. I'll tell you where the B&O tax always comes into a rub with me, coming from a school board perspective, is on the construction side. And it's not so bad on the construction side, but it gets pyramided, because the group's coming in and working for the main contractor. The main contractor has to put that bill out there, then he puts a surcharge because he had to handle. This thing just escalates because of something that is, meant to be helpful. So I would like to know, is there some way we can look at that side of it and maybe correct that? Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Try to do something to make it till it's workable. And that is probably where a lot of people has the rub with the B&O tax, is on the pyramiding on the construction side.
So if we're looking at one strategic part of the B&O, the plea from the local side is figure out what the replacement tax is first. Put that in place first. Then look at how to eliminate something. Because once something's eliminated, it's gone. And the 1/3, 45%, half of somebody's local budget, which is jobs and safety, and we don't have a lot of fluff in our budgets. That money needs to figure out how to be replaced before something is just eliminated. So,
I would agree with you, Mayor. For instance, you guys have a lot of bonds out there that's dependent upon a taxing structure that's in place. I was talking to Commissioner Bloom about that earlier. If you're going out there to bond in the state of West Virginia today to build something, to build a new building, if I'm the person you're coming and asking for the money, I'm going to look you dead in the eye and say, hey, that guarantee you offering up that you'll give is going to be paid out of B&O revenue, or it's going to be paid out of sales tax revenue, it's going to be paid out of whatever revenue. I'm going to look you in the eye and say, listen, I listen to what's going on in West Virginia, and I will quite frankly tell you that until Mayor Lewis brought it up to me yesterday, the B&O tax wasn't on my radar, because I didn't even think that was going to be one of the taxes. It could possibly be. I can tell you that taxes is going to be a big issue in the legislature that's down here. Anybody that's paying any attention at all. So the thing you got to be careful about it is, as Mayor Saline said, if you throw out there and open up a section of code trying to correct something, always remember, when you open up a section of code, it's just like a surgeon. If they go in and open you up to do a gallbladder, they find out you got cancer, they're going to operate on it at the same time while it's there. The legislature can do the same thing. If you open up any section of code, somebody else could change anything in that code that they feel needs changed while it's open. So what you started out to be a good thing to help somebody could end up harming them. So it's going to be a taxing issue a year down in Charleston. I believe Mike would agree upon that. I don't know where Paul's going to go to, but I think it's quite clear. And again, I realize if we cut a tax here, and that's tied into your bonding structure, you've got to meet your bonds. So that means something else has got to give somewhere else. And it's just a vicious cycle in it. So say again.
Cities and counties and school districts need stability. So whatever you all can provide for stability helps. Anything that somebody does that doesn't provide for stability hurts, no matter what, no matter how well-meaning. So just keep that in mind.
And again, keep in mind, last year we ran a bill that probably didn't make the service employees, the bus drivers out there real happy, looking at vans for small groups of school children that was able to use a van. Under code, by federal code, that can have no more than 10 persons in that van, including the driver. It looked like a no-brainer to do this to help out some of these small groups. One, we don't have enough bus drivers to do some of these runs, so we have to find a way to do it. It looked like that was a bill that came out of Berkeley County. It looked like a bill that would be good. We ran it out of education. We looked at that thing up and down, and yes, we had a lot of feedback on it. Lo and behold, it comes up this year from Mon County. I think 2 years ago, the Mon County Board of Education bought some vans. They bought them in a heavier structure load so that they could pull a trailer around, not with students in it, but pull that trailer around to locate it for their food services area. So they bought that van. It was a 15-passenger van. Well, we know the rules. You can't have more than 10 people in it, and they weren't doing it. But lo and behold, because of one word, and that's thing, manufactured, the vehicle cannot be manufactured for more than 10 persons. We can't take the seats out of those vans so nobody can ride in them. It was manufactured for a 15-passenger van. So now we have to go back on that piece of legislation, as simple as we thought it was, and go back and take out the wording the way it is. And that bill's drafted and out there, but I'm just saying, no matter how hard we look at this thing, sometimes we miss this stuff. Another set of eyes looking at it, and believe me, I called the Board of Education, I don't know how many times, on that particular issue and told them the bill number and what we're looking at. They didn't pick up on it either, but the insurance company sure did. Their carriers picked up on it. So trust me, sometimes we make mistakes that we have to go back and correct when we do things. And if you see them ahead of time, it's a whole lot easier the first time around, because that bill bringing it up again gave some angst the first time. Opening that code back up, I don't know what's going to happen. So could possibly lose everything again. So just a little word of warning from us.
Joe, I was going to let you know too, if you have questions about the tax structure for the construction or contracting, or any of you guys do, I know how our municipality handles that, so we don't double dip at any time or anything like that, so I can answer any of your questions as far as that for our municipality.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
If I can offer any comfort to the municipalities, my last term in the state senate, of the 134 members of the legislature, I was selected as legislator of the year by the West Virginia Municipal League. So I've demonstrated commitment to doing what's right for the cities, and look forward to working with you all.
And another,
I'm sorry, can I make a comment real quick? I think something really interesting unfolded over the course of the conversation that we just had. Commissioner Bloom started it off really, and he mentioned two problems that we have before we can even talk about taxes. We talked about roads extensively. We all know, we don't need to beat into our brains anymore how important that is. We all understand it. And then we went right to taxes. We skipped right over the drugs. We skipped right over the homeless problem that we have. And there's something that can often be very difficult to talk about that. It's human beings. And it, for some reason, as important as it is, it keeps falling into a certain blind spot. So There's a lot of ways that we can go about it. It's going to be difficult no matter what that we do, but I think that the most important part of this is that there needs to be partnership between not only the Mon County legislators, the senators as well. There needs to be communication between the municipality and the legislators as well. We need a united front when it comes to this. And I talk to a lot of people in my district. It's very residential. They go into town, they go into the Suncrest areas because they want to do things. And one of the biggest things that they talk about is they're concerned about the safety of downtown. I don't think that's something that is that's very controversial to mention, but one thing that I think really hurts is that my people know about certain attitudes that certain members on the council have. I've seen somebody on the council belittle people who speak at council meetings and express their concerns, and someone on the council I've seen on social media mention that basically you're a bad person if you don't let homeless people sleep on your porch. That's not the message that I think council truly wants to communicate at all, and it's certainly not the things that my constituents really want to hear. Why would they go into town if they know that that's the attitude? I was just at St. John's this past week, and there's needles in the parking lot. I've had patients when I worked at the substance abuse clinic. They work downtown, they are operating, they do the maintenance there. They're in the catwalks behind the buildings constantly. I've seen pictures of mountains of needles. I'm not going to talk about the pros and cons of the needle exchange right now, but the problem is that there are mountains of needles in the alleyways in Morgantown. Something needs to be done about that. So I just wanted to slip that right in before we concluded things, because like Mr. Bloom said, it is important, but for some reason a lot of people just keep missing it. So I just had to say something. Thank you.
And just so you know,
we have a number of people talking back
Collaborating with you. Collaborating
Of course.
with you. You should know that I would say to a person, every person on council is very interested in that particular issue. Interested in both being humane about it, thorough about it, being sure that we're offering business owners and what they need, being sure that we're working in our downtown, being sure that we're working in the adjacent areas, being sure we're working with the county. And we've worked on Hazel's House of Hope. We've worked on owning the bus line, paying for the bus line. We don't own it. Paying for the bus line so that people can more easily get there. It's a shift for people to go to a different location, and it's going to take time. I know that our deputy mayor in particular has worked really hard on this issue. I know that Councilor Kowecki has worked on this issue. I know that other council members, as you referred to, are interested in making sure that people are treated well and do have a place to sleep. So I would say that this council, probably more than any other from a lot of different directions, are all working on that issue.
And this is and that's what I know for a fact, is I know that the council really wants to help. I think there's a perception problem, is it feels like a lot of people that when they talk about downtown, I'm not saying this is the case, I'm just reporting what the general vibe is that they feel like the council doesn't care. And I know that's not the case. I know that's not the case.
If people think that, they could think that, but I would say the council cares.
I
would say,
know that's
after
not
you see smiles around here, you see us all being very angsty about the area in front of the library and making sure that people feel comfortable coming into the downtown. On my way here, I got stopped by 2 business owners to talk to them about this in detail, and also talk about making sure that High Street, there's been some construction on High Street, making sure that that's open, making sure that that's repaved when it's done. We care about this issue hugely, and just because there may be some differences in approach doesn't mean that people don't care, and doesn't mean that each person's attitude and version of what help isn't important and valued and needed. So the people that you see here are here for a reason. The people that you see in other contexts working in other directions, they're also providing, looking at the differences between what families need to stay overnight somewhere and what an individual needs. Those differences have been paid attention to this year, and it's not through anything that I in particular did. So I just think that it's easy to see those divisions, and it's easy to point out that you don't like someone's approach, but you really need, you all have a really interesting mix of who we're sending down to Charleston this year, and you're gonna have to figure out how to make use of all of your strengths and connections and serve us well.
Yeah,
So.
and the question was asked earlier, I think, to me was, so what are we going to do about that? And really, Main Street is working really closely with the city and, coming up with a safety plan. And we're in sync together, working on some things. We think we'll put a dent in some of those issues that get talked about quite a bit. So what I love about this is really what it's all about. It's about talking together, and it's about communicating together, and it's about working together to solve all kinds of problems, be it that or roads or education or whatever it happens to be. And so I really appreciate everyone's time here. I think we might want to wrap up.
We had one more person back there that had asked for earlier asked to say
If there's time.
Well, you're a co-chair, so.
Yeah, thank you. Evan, I know you did the work on showing that the formula used for monies on transportation wasn't fair to Mon County. I mean, that's common. My question is, what are the actionable points that you can do this legislative session to change that? Does it take a code change? Is it, what is it that, because nothing happened. We identified the problem. We said we got to change it. So what is it that has to change?
Well, we did pass a bill that changed state code to require them to use the formula. And I think Delegate Williams was the lead sponsor of that, and Delegate Statler worked on it. Brian Kerchopper worked on it after he was no longer in the legislature. And we passed that, I believe, unanimously.
Yeah.
And the governor vetoed it.
Oh.
So it has to happen.
Oh,
The governor needs to back off.
Yeah.
His veto.
So you got to do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then override the veto.
So it's not hard to override the veto if you pass a bill, so you just need a majority. But the governor chose to maintain total control over how the road dollars were being spent, rather than trying to use a formula that would apportion it out to the counties in a fair manner. And so he chose to take control of it, so he owns that issue.
Yeah.
He vetoed that bill.
And he vetoed it too late for the override.
Yeah.
Right, you waited till
Yeah,
the end.
I recall that now.
Yes.
So the actionable point is try again?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think the actionable point is, because we have tried again, and I don't want to pass the buck on to anybody. That's not my intention. That's not my style. But I think now we need to draw attention to this issue, and I will point out that there is a petition process in the House of Delegates in which any member can introduce a petition for any type of subject matter saying, here's 1,000 signatures that indicate my people want issue XYZ acted upon. And I talked earlier about people reaching out for help to me. I'll chide myself right now. I've never reached out to MAP to have them share this, but I have a petition that's been going for about 2 years, and I've shared it far and wide. Please sign it. Please sign it. It's got 400 signatures. I want 1,000 signatures at least that we as a delegation could jointly submit and say this is really important to our people. And so I think that's one of the actionable items.
I think we can handle that.
Yes.
Now, that's great.
Yeah,
Real
I can
quickly,
get butts in the seats, I can certainly get a petition signed.
real quickly, the trouble is with that piece of legislation,
Where's the money?
it's asked for winners and losers.
Yeah.
So if the formula is not correct, I understand that, but somebody's benefiting by that formula not being correct. We know that.
Yeah.
The trouble is getting now that they've had a chance, they unanimously pretty much passed the bill, but now they've got to sit back and look at it because the DOH very much hates that piece of legislation. They will do everything they can to stop that piece of legislation, and they will start early. Like say the bill's drafted. So what we done, we went back and looked because, for instance, a county in this area was going to lose $1 million of funding because of that. We would pick up funding in Monongalia County. So the bill is drafted now simply says to try to look at the formula, how it is. We don't cut money necessarily right across the board and take funding away while they're working on the roads. It will do it over time to increase and look at the formula to increase the counties as in need. So you're not going to gain it quick, you're not going to lose it quick. And I think that's a piece in the legislation that will help move it forward. Now our biggest thing is getting the DOH online with it, even more so than the governor. and moving the bill quick enough that it can be overridden as a veto.
So we'll do what we can to help you help us, right? And I think that's the whole part of this conversation. This has been a great conversation. I really appreciate the interaction and the participation of everyone. And let's not make it a one meeting event. Let's continue to do that. We're going to be down on February 2nd. Third. We'll figure it out. on Preston Day, so we'll be down there. So first of all, yep, Preston County is going to have buckwheat pancakes. So we'll see you at breakfast.
Buckwheat cakes.
Oh,
no fair.
tell them I'm from Preston County. And so we'll be down with our delegation, and we're on the Senate side this year. So Mike, we'll need your help in doing the resolution thing and whatnot. But hopefully you all get a chance to swing by, see us. You'll see a lot more of our information about that coming out here in the coming days and weeks. I know that's all kind of a bit ceremonial, if you will, but it is an opportunity for us to come down and see you all in session, and then would like to continue this communications with the partnership side and definitely the government affairs of how we may be able to support you. Communications back to our constituents here, which is everybody in the county. So we'll work on that, and we'll see how that goes and get better at that, right? Pledge that. And then we'll do kind of a wrap-up meeting once the session's over, kind of hear what we all talk about, what did happen or didn't happen down there, and we really appreciate that kind of feedback. And thank everyone here for being here today. And let's keep talking, let's keep working together and supporting each other to do what's right for Vermont County. So please don't leave right away, but you will leave.